Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen to us every week on air or online at iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn app, smart speakers, nccradio.org, and download the WHPC app. Also, our podcasts are available wherever you get podcasts, including Apple, Google Play, and Spreaker. Herbally Yours always brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I am so happy to have on board as our guest, Dr. Julie Gatza, known as Dr. Julie. She is the co-founder of the Florida Wellness Institute. And Dr. Gatza is one of the nation's top chiropractic physicians with more than 30 years of clinical practice, during which she assisted many thousands of patients to resolve a wide variety of physical ailments. Using her understanding of the nervous system, nutrition, and alternative therapies, Dr. Gatza's mission with each patient is to enhance their body's potential to heal itself. A good contact number is 727-218-9038 or visit floridawellnessinstitute.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Julie.
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Ellen.
So there's so many different things that we can talk about. Let's go back in time and share what made you become a chiropractor.
Well, I'm third generation. So in our family, if you were sick or didn't feel well or fell out of a tree or any array of incidences, mom always brought us to the chiropractor. So my grandfather, my great uncle, my cousin, and myself are all chiropractors. So we didn't really know medical scene other than, the occasional antibiotic. And I, knew I wanted to do this when I was about 10 or 11. And when I did open up practice, we found that all the different things that we were trying to correct and stabilize and handle where you weren't even thinking people should come in and see you for, when we handled the digestive system, we found that we could really make a huge difference in people's health, from autoimmune disorders to asthma and skin problems and high blood sugar and high cholesterol and high blood pressure. And it was all fix the gut first. And then whatever you did after that made a huge difference in how it lasted and how somebody could be in control of their own health and not have to be connected to me or somebody else to keep their health the way they wanted it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that's an interesting perspective because many people, when they hear chiropractor, they think more or less about adjustments and more of a physical manipulation. Yet, so much is linked to nutrition. That's and right. For our topic for today, really we'll focus on seasonal digestive distress, which people may be going into that season right now. So putting an end to fall tummy troubles and bloat.
Well, I do think that people have a problem with digestion, especially at this time of the year. One, things are slowing down. Let's just look at the clock itself. But the fact is, we do have an inordinate amount of holidays, from Halloween to Thanksgiving to Christmas and any other holiday that you can think of in between. You've got a lot of eating. You've got a lot of, mom's favorite foods. You've got a lot of things that, in general, it's hard to get off the eating train from now until somewhere in January or February, when you decide that, your New Year's resolution should probably start to be followed. So people gain weight. They're digestively stressed, they're gas, bloated, indigestion, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, and acid reflux. None of those are normal. They're very common, but it's not normal to have any of those symptoms. So my goal is to educate my patients on how to avoid that. And two, if they do have it, solutions to actually getting them out of the woods quickly.
Those are great suggestions. And I know one trick that I have followed for many, many, many decades is that before, I like going to parties because I like the social interaction and often see people I haven't seen for a while. But especially at this holiday season, the parties are full of so many foods that are going to cause you to have the symptoms that you just shared with us, Dr. Julie. So one trick I do is I eat my healthy food at home, and then I allow myself, those yummy, goody, sweetie things. I'm not hungry, so I will take literally a small bite for the flavor without filling up on it. And I do not gain 1 single pound, and I don't feel all having digestive problems at the end of the holiday season. I think that's just one of many really good tricks.
That's one that I say exactly to do. And then on top of it, there's alcohol involved at that party. So I say go where you just had one huge glass of water after you've been fed. And every time you reach for an alcohol, have another glass of water. So you'll slow it down. You won't over imbibe, you won't overeat. And by the time you're done, you'll feel good and you won't feel guilty that you just, consumed all day's worth of food because you skipped a meal and, you weren't prepared or planning something.
It's true. And I think you outlined very well, and we can repeat again, the fact that when you're having digestive distress, it's not just digestive distress. It's going to lead to inflammation. It's going to deplete your immune resources. How are those things connected?
Well, if you get every bit of your nutrition through your intestine, if you irritate your intestine enough, what's going to happen, instead of having tiny holes in the small intestine to only allow nutrition to go into the bloodstream, that's normal. Then those nutrients carry all the energy it needs to go to the rest of the body and heal it or keep it healthy. If those tiny holes are irritated and inflamed, you now get particles of food, you get toxins, you get feces, you get, things that don't belong in the bloodstream, and your immune system sees this and says, high alert, we must attack. So your immune system starts to overwork, attacking your body and things that don't belong in the bloodstream. This is how autoimmune disorders start. This is why you have to correct the digestive system for anybody, really, because once you correct this, now you can only have nutrients going into the bloodstream, and the rest is, avoided from the body. But skin conditions and fatigue and hormonal imbalance and weight gain and all the digestive stressors, those are all stemming from the gut. And we aren't taught enough about it. We aren't educated hardly at all. And if we had, given kids 5 rounds of education of, normal healthy eating and gut health all throughout their education and ran a couple of infomercials on occasion, we would all be much more aware of what the heck it is that we're doing and why it's not okay to feel the way that we do.
Yeah, that's such good information. And I want to remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse. And today, my guest is Dr. Julie Gatza. We're talking about digestive distress. And you can always find her at FloridaWellnessInstitute.com. Well, you just put together a lot of information there, Dr. Julie, so we'll break it down a little bit, because in the Western medical model, someone would go to a gastroenterologist if they have a stomach ache, and then they would go to a dermatologist if they're having a skin issue, and then they'll go to a rheumatologist if their joints aren't working well. And yet that is like the absolutely wrong way to address health, because all of it is related to the food. I cannot imagine how in this day, and what we're saying, by the way, I've written many, many books. So one is called Arthritis, the Alternative Medicine Definitive Guide. And in there, we lay out, if any of you listeners would want to know exactly how that connection that Dr. Julie is sharing occurs. And the fact that this fractionalization in Western medicine is really incorrect. Because if you go to a rheumatologist, they don't even ask you what you're eating, which is amazing because the literature fully supports what you're saying, Dr. Julie.
I know. I knew I liked you, Ellen. We are talking the same language. And, out of all these years, it is a bit frustrating. I've decided not to be frustrated anymore. And, it's lovely for me to be able to talk on a platform that I'm talking more than just a patient in front of me, because I do feel that this is important information that people should be taught from a young age and retaught, because there are so many things that are delicious to eat. There are so many opportunities to, kind of blow your normal program, and it's okay. Blow it. Enjoy, your day. Enjoy the things that are here. But, the problem is people don't know how to get back towards normal, and they're running to the pharmacy and they're running to the, over the counter to try to handle all the symptoms, rather than actually saying, why do I have this? And, doing one small thing to change it, because if it's the right thing, within a week or 2 weeks, you'll see a big difference in your health if you're doing the right thing. Yeah,
it's challenging that a rheumatologist will not say, what are you eating? Even though that is usually, if not the main cause, part of the cause of whatever inflammatory response you are experiencing. Right. So if someone comes to your office, how do you start that conversation?
Well, I educate them first on the different reasons that somebody might be unhealthy. And, I am a chiropractor, so I firmly believe that, if a car is parked on a garden hose, you must unpark that car to make sure that the garden is working well, so that, you're not just doing everything to the garden and not, taking a look at the garden hose. So the nerves going to the rest of the body can sometimes have some interference where a bone might be out of place and putting some pressure on that nerve. So that's the chiropractic. But then I also look at toxicity. I look to see, are they eating things they shouldn't be? Is the liver overwhelmed? Are they not making digestive enzymes properly so that they should be able to break down the foods that they're eating, the different types? And then we also look at stressors in the system, not just, mental and emotional stress, but, chemical stress and physical stress. And, are you sleeping enough? And what is your diet look like? And, what are the things that you drink throughout the day? And how much water do you have? So getting a very thorough understanding and history from them, now I have a place to start. And I generally start with the digestive system. So it starts with, making sure that they are taking high quality digestive enzymes. I have one called Absorbed that I love. It breaks down the fats, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the dairy products, because we're not making enough. When we add in high quality digestive enzymes, it aids in allowing a person to break down a very good meal. And if they're going to go off the rails, they can break down some of the gunk in the bad meal as well and not suffer so badly.
Yeah, I am actually a big believer in supplemented with what you mentioned, which is good quality digestive enzymes. Not everyone needs them all the time. And it is something that you can actually, like for myself, I don't usually have any kind of digestive problems, but I have digestive enzymes with me at all times in my to-go bag. So should I go out with friends and, like you said, go off the diet because it's a special day. Also, I'll pre-plan those days. Mm-hmm. I'll go, I know I'm going with my husband on Saturday somewhere. So then I'm especially good in my diet the days before, allowing me to have that day off, which never hurts, like one time for most people. And then I have my digestive enzymes with me, and they make such a difference if you are having a digestive distress issue.
It's true. And, I often get asked, if you could just tell me one thing I could take, what would it be? A lot of people don't like to take nutrition. A lot of people don't want to spend the money. And I'll always say, well, I think Absorbed is more important than having the multivitamin, because doesn't it make more sense to wring more nutrients out of the meal that's sitting in front of you and, gaining all the nutrition that you're supposed to from eating well, or, wringing as much as you can from a meal that may be a little substandard. To me, the digestive system needs to be supported most of the time, because I believe we don't have the same type of food that we had 50 years ago. Our seeds are changed. Our soil has changed. The way we package and bring it to the store, it's all very devoid of the nutrition that I grew up with.
Yes, that is so true. So those are wonderful tips that you have there. And how would you say someone should begin that journey?
I would say when you wake up in the morning, have one full glass of water. It starts to stimulate the brain. It gets the body going. It gives you natural energy. You most likely dehydrated from the night before. So when you do go and have breakfast, have protein first, If you can throw some vegetables in on that, that would be great. I find that the biggest thing that people are missing in their diets is quality protein, and they're skipping it each meal. They're also sending their kids to school with a bowl of cereal and, a glass of orange juice. And we're, trying to go and be smart and active and, on spot and have lots of energy throughout the day with a bagel and a cup of coffee. So we've already set up the system to not be as efficient as it's supposed to be when we are not eating protein for breakfast. And then I would say the same thing for lunch and dinner. When you do that throughout the day, you find you snack less at night. You'll be less hungry. You won't need to reach into your desk and have that little bar of chocolate. You probably won't need the second cup of coffee. And if you're drinking a ton of water and eating protein throughout the day, you will start to win the digestive game. You'll lose some of the muffin top that you're experiencing and some of the inflammation in the body. And that's really the simplest and cheapest way I've seen to improve people's health.
I totally agree. As a healthcare practitioner, how do you discuss that with clients who are vegan?
To be a vegan in this country is tricky because so many people are doing it incorrectly. They're doing it where, instead of soaking the beans and buying different types of legumes and, really doing it like other countries have been doing it for centuries. We're doing it the easy, fast way, which is, have a roll and, have noodles and rice and pasta. And it's going to be a nutritionally deficient vegan if they don't spend the time to do it
That's
correctly.
true. Actually, historically, around the world, there are just about 0 vegan natural cultures. In fact, there's only one I can think of, which is the Jains. And they actually figure that they are being rewarded after they pass away. So they're not that interested in health and life extension. That's not why they're doing that diet. They're doing it for their own commitment to spirituality. And that's the same thing with my clients. I think that that's a very unhealthy diet. And even when you talk about beans, so many people are lectin sensitive, which is a whole other relationship with beans, even things like hummus. So that's when we, dig down and do individualized testing. But I do find that if a client says that they're vegan, I'll ask them, are you doing that because you think it's healthy? Or are you doing that because it's more like almost a religious, emotional, spiritual connection to not using animal products, which I honor and we can work around it. But if you're doing it for health reasons, I think it's the wrong choice.
You sound exactly what I say to my patients. Exactly. And, if it's not a spiritual reason that they're doing this, I will often twist their arms to incorporate some eggs in that diet and also some fish. And those two things I find will, help them through with the things that they're missing because that will satisfy the missing amino acids and, also give the proteins that they aren't quite getting as well as they're supposed to from eating the legumes and the beans. And you're perfectly right. I'm trying not to offend, but I have found that the vegans in general are missing a lot of nutrients. They're having energy problems. They aren't as slender as I think they intended to be. And they're a little puffed up and inflamed because of the other choices that they're making.
Oh, I really think so, especially when they're young. And the first thing they do, like you said, would be to cut out any animal product, but fill that in with sugar and wheat.
Right, correct.
So that's really, really good advice. And just what you said is true. You even mentioned, let's say, having something like some kind of animal protein and vegetables, even for breakfast, even though, the concept is more coffee and cake.
Right. I mean, that's just an American breakfast that's been around for less than 100 years. But if you go over to Europe, you find that there is so many other choices for breakfast that it's not just an eggs and toast breakfast. So, I try to eat dinner for breakfast often. If I've had steak or fish or chicken, sometimes I'll just grab it and eat it. But I do, if I'm not doing that, I'll often, make eggs and throw spinach into them and cut up broccoli and, just incorporate that because it's full and I'm not hungry. I don't think about it after I'm done. It's, keeps me feeling decent and I don't really have to, worry about having a cup of coffee because my energy, was lacking it somewhere before lunch.
Also, the amount of that high protein, dense protein, good quality, organic is best food. It can be a small amount. You don't need a 12-ounce steak 3 times a day. To me, I actually make them almost in the size of pills. And I'll pre-cook lamb, let's say, and I make it into little balls and freeze it. And then I'll just take 2 or 3 of those with me on my way, along with raw celery and lettuce. I don't even have time to make a salad. And, it's easy, it's inexpensive. And it's really, I am convinced, the way most people will feel a whole lot better.
It's true. Now, my favorite food for taking along is a hard-boiled egg. I never loved eggs. And I decided to change my mind. And so I started eating eggs and hard-boiled eggs. And, my favorite way is to hard-boil them, put a little olive oil and some vinegar on them with some salt, pepper, and oregano, and surround it with other things, cut up cucumbers. And it is such a satisfying lunch. You can you can put a hard-boiled egg in your purse. You can put it in your kid's lunchbox. You can have it when your kid is, complaining that they're hungry right before dinner. Fine. Don't give them an apple and, take away their appetite. If they're really complaining, give them a hard-boiled egg. They're at least getting the protein and, you're not doing them a disservice. Yeah,
I think that's really, really good advice. And you're listening to Herbally Yours right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And we're having our discussion with our guest, and she's giving you some really, really good advice. Her name is Dr. Julie Gatza, and you can find her at FloridaWellnessInstitute.com. So, Dr. Julie, the name of this show, I have lots of radio shows, but the name of this one is called Herbally Yours. And I am on the board of the American Herbalist Guild, and I'm a registered herbalist for many, many decades. And I noticed that you're also talking about how herbs can be useful in this digestive scenario. Why don't you go into some of your favorite herbs?
Well, I think I'm preaching to the choir on this one, but I'm a huge fan of, one, just recognizing that there's a lot of different ethnicities in this country, and they also came with digestive aids, each one of their meals. You've got sauerkraut with the Germans and ginger with Japanese, and you've got pineapple that's put in through each meal to help break down proteins. And you've got, peppers and spices that aid in the circulation to the digestive system. So you add turmeric to this, and oregano is a beautiful herb that helps with so many levels of health. You've got peppermint that, should be consumed often as far as a tea. It also aids digestively, and parsley. And there's just so many other things that you can use, but these aren't just pretty things on the side of the plate that you put on the side. These are things that actually you should consume with the meal because, our ancestors did know that we needed some aid digestively so that we could continue to be healthy. And, there wasn't the plethora of doctors to run and see at this point to some degree to their advantage. They had to come up with natural solutions. And so, I'm all, probably I don't know near as much as you on this line, but every time I learn something new, I do try to incorporate myself and then, teach it to my patients.
Well, it's really interesting that you brought up sauerkraut, because if we think about sauerkraut, almost everybody in Eastern Europe had that in their lineage. And then when we're talking about Asian societies, there's kimchi.
That's right.
Well, basically Korean, but it goes throughout Asia. Other cultures use it. So there's the same thing. I like the kimchi better because it also incorporates that hot flavor where the sauerkraut doesn't. But it's really interesting. Like, how would all those grandmothers, be serving the same food? We know there has to be deep knowledge there, and it really does help your digestion.
It certainly does. I mean, even drinking the sauerkraut juice, if you're so, into it, there's a whole area that, you do something like that, and it actually helps, fight cancer in people who are, in stage, and, changing up the digestive system this way is, powerful.
And like you said with pineapple, because if it's, it's interesting. We did a laboratory experiment and we found that pineapple contains certain digestive enzymes, but really only if it's organic.
Oh, interesting.
The highly genetically modified pineapples do not contain a measurable amount of bromelain. Bromelain happens to be the digestive enzyme associated with pineapple. So, that's another, I think, good focus for health and healthy digestion is looking at less processed, which I know you talk about, and more organic food. if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, still unprocessed.
That's right. And, I've never pushed organic on my patients for 31 years. However, because I didn't, I'm already asking enough of them. So then to turn around and try to feed themselves and their family organic, does put a pricey little tag on it on occasion. But the fact is, if you shop on the perimeter of the grocery store, you're pretty much going to win the game, because that's where the fresh meats and vegetables and fruits are. And if you're in and out the middle part of the grocery store, you're getting things from packages and boxes and cans, and now you're reading ingredients and things are put in there that should not be. So, stick to the outside, and you're going to do yourself a favor. And the other thing is, there's almost no way around it without learning to get around the kitchen at least a bit. And my other suggestion would be, pull the kids in and, tell them Tuesday night, I need you to make a healthy menu, and I'd like for you to help me shop and make this meal. I don't care how old they are. They'll start to take some pride and some interest in this, and you're going to start to make these young bodies and minds more apt to start doing some of their own cooking in the kitchen and make themselves and their families healthier.
Well, Dr. Gatza, it's our time to say goodbye, but I want to thank you so much for being our guest today. And I'm reminding our listeners they can find more about you and your work at floridawellnessinstitute.com.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.